there are two sides to a story.
Right.
And we're only getting the Israeli side.
Right.
The Israelis are backing Reza Pahlavi. The Israelis are backing these so-called human rights organizations. The Israelis are the ones demanding that U.S. policy be that Iran doesn't have any missiles. So we just have to be very careful.
Let's talk about Iran, because there's a lot of reports coming out that Iran is killing their protesters. And somehow, even though it took over a year for the United States to get an accurate count of how many people died on 9/11, then in 5 seconds, they've got an accurate count of how many people are being killed in Iran. But here is Iraqi Christian Foundation says there is no difference between the Iraq war and the current U.S. drive towards war with Iran. Just as with Iran, starvation sanctions were used against the Iraqi population for many years, pre-2003. Western media pushed the same propaganda about Iraq's government pre-war. Neocons became obsessed with Iraq to an evil degree for decades, and terrorists were trained by the CIA to infiltrate and terrorize Iraq pre-war. The Chaldean Catholics being the terrorist first targets. Another forever war may start soon, no different than previous forever wars, something Donald Trump promised he wouldn't let happen. And of course, that's exactly what's happening. And I just want to, real quick, from the gray zone, Western media is whitewashing deadly riots in Iran, relying on U.S. government-funded regime change NGOs. NGOs are non-governmental organizations. So here's the former CIA agent John Kiriakou. He's going to let us know that when they tell you that the Iran is killing their own people right now, and that's being used as the reason why we have to go in, because we care about the Iranian people. That's what this is all about. We really care about them, just like we care about the Venezuelan people, just like we cared about the Syrian people, just like we cared about the Iraqi people, so it's all a big yank. It's the same stupid story. And so here's what John Kiriakou has to say, where they're getting their numbers from. Listen to where they're getting their numbers from, the U.S. media.
Times, CNN, the Wall Street Journal. I looked at them all last night, and they're all saying, oh my God, it's murder in the streets in Iran. Oh my God, this human rights organization is saying, 172 dead. Okay, that human rights organization is based in London, and it's funded by the Israelis and Iranians in exile. And then, oh my God, there's this other human rights organization. It's saying 500 dead. Yeah, that one's in Washington, and they take money from the CIA. So you can't.
So there's no reliable information.
There's no reliable information. Now, are people being killed in Iran? Absolutely, yes. But think of this too. Do we know that these people aren't being killed by Israeli-backed protesters? Because the Israelis have been bragging over the weekend that they're the ones backing the protesters. And I'll add another thing that literally no one is reporting. Protesters set on fire 48 fire engines in Tehran. 48 fire engines, so that they cannot respond to fires. Why? Because it's the Israeli-backed protesters setting shit on fire. And this is just to make it worse.
Now, the thing is, okay, so for people who are listening and are thinking, okay, John's being conspiratorial and blah, 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 let's not forget that we know that Iran is riddled with people on the Mossad payroll because of the fact that, they provided the targeting information for the Israeli-U.S. military attacks against atomic scientists and military sites in Iran recently. Right? We know that. We talked about here on the show before any of these protests started about how Iran has a serious Israel problem in terms of infiltration. So I just want to, provide a little context there.
Yeah, I think my point here is to remind everybody that there are two sides to a story. Right. And we're only getting the Israeli side.
Right.
The Israelis are backing Reza Pahlavi. The Israelis are backing these so-called human rights organizations. The Israelis are the ones demanding that U.S. policy be that Iran doesn't have any missiles. So we just have to be very careful.
So here's one of the things they're not reporting. Western media has ignored a growing trove of video evidence showing terrorist tactics deployed across Iran by protesters. described by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch as largely peaceful. So, of course, here's one more. Recent videos published by both Iranian state media and anti-government forces reveal public lynchings of unarmed guards, the torching of mosques, arson attacks on municipal buildings, marketplaces, and fire stations, and mobs of armed gunmen opening fire in the heart of Iranian cities. Instead, Western media has focused almost exclusively on violence attributed to the Iranian government. And so, who are they relying on? They're relying on the CIA-backed human rights and the NED, which is the National Endowment for Democracy, which is just another cutout of the CIA. And so do you think the American people are going to fall for this again?
Yes. I mean, sadly, they shouldn't. One thing that's missing there, over 100 Iranian police officers have been murdered by these mobs. Could you imagine the reaction in the United States if 100 cops were killed by mobs firing, weapons and burning them to death? It would be over. We'd mobilize everything and kill everything. There's a war taking place in Iran, but it's a war that's prompted by the Mossad, by the CIA. It's a war that's been planned for some time now. When the protests first started, the first day or two, they were peaceful protests, and there was nobody dying. The Iranian government didn't go in to kill protesters. In fact, the president of Iran is very sympathetic to the protesters. I just want to remind people that it was the Iranian protests about that poor Kurdish girl that died in police custody over the hijab incident. And there was violence there. You know what happened from that? Women don't have to wear the hijab in Iran anymore. You can go to Tehran, go to the mall, and they got their hair hanging free, hanging down, running free, because the Iranian president listens to the Iranian people. And when these protests first started, he was walking with them. But then the Israelis moved in their cellular structures, brought out their weapons, and started murdering people, burning a 3-year-old girl to death, burning nurses to death, and killing over 100 cops. And so the Iranians responded, shooting at the people shooting at them. And yes, there are dead people, but not in the numbers that are being put out there. I mean, these ridiculous numbers, 12 to 20,000. Hell, we fought the Battle of Bulge for over a month with millions of Americans fighting millions of Germans with the most violent weapons at the time, and 19,000 Americans died. Do you understand how much violence actually happened to kill 12 to 20,000 people? It isn't happening, but hundreds of people are dying, being killed, fighting in this combat between Israeli Mossad agents and Iranian security forces. That's the reality of it. Not going to be reported because the truth isn't what we want to hear.
So this is from the Jerusalem Post. The Mossad spurs Iran protests, says agents with demonstrators in Farsi message. So as protests grow across Iran, the Mossad posted an unusual Farsi message urging demonstrators to act, saying it is with them in the streets amid rising economic pressure and public unrest. So is there any doubt that this is another one of these CIA, Mossad inspired protests, and it's like they take a normal protest and they make it go crazy and they fund money. Then they're also sending arms to these protesters too, the Mossad. Is there any doubt in your mind that that's what's happening?
No, this dates back to at the end of the Bush administration, transitioning to Obama administration. There was a guy named Jared Cohen who worked for the Bush administration, the State Department. He came up with a concept called digital democracy, and basically it was using the internet to rally the youth of these different nations, Iran, Lebanon, Egypt, to become pro-Western and to rise up against their people. Digital democracy became the heart of what the CIA's regime change operations in Syria and in Iran. They tried, the Green Movement back in 2009 was a CIA operation using digital democracy. It's the same model now that the Mossad and the CIA have been perfecting over time. They last tried it in the summer of 2023. They failed. But no, there's no doubt about this. Jimmy, they made a mistake, the Israelis, and they rarely do. But the tool, the communication tool that they use to communicate with these cells that they had in these Mossad agents was Starlink. And they were sold on this by Elon Musk. But, the Russians have great experience with Starlink, too, because of Elon Musk providing it to the Ukrainians. And the Russians have broken the code on Starlink. And they have the ability to, A, jam it, and C, detect it and monitor it. And they provided this to the Iranians. Ask yourself why there's a 3-day internet blackout, because Iran shut it all down to silence the communications between these people. The Israelis panicked and tried to send in new Starlink terminals. The Iranians captured all of this. This has been a Western-funded, Western-directed, Western-organized, Western-equipped operation from the very beginning, and the Iranians know it. It's not that they're guessing. The Iranians have been monitoring this. They have all the evidence that proves that this is a Mossad operation.
So just to let people know where they're getting their information from, in assessing death toll in Iran, outlets throughout the U.S. and Europe have depended on two NGOs based in Washington and funded by the U.S. government's National Endowment for Democracy. What is the National Endowment for Democracy? The National Endowment for Democracy was created under the watch of the Reagan administration's CIA director, William Casey, to enable the government to continue meddling abroad despite widespread distrust in U.S. intelligence. So one of its founders, Alan Weinstein, famously admitted a lot of what we do today was done covertly 25 years ago by the CIA. So this is 100% CIA Mossad operation happening in Iran. You think the American people are going to fall for it? I know that Charlie Kirk was against this, and I have a feeling that also contributed to why he got offed, because he had unbelievable popularity with the young generation of conservatives in the United States, and he was against it. And so they had to get rid of him. And I think that had a lot to do with it. And certainly after they tried to bribe him and he turned down their money, I'm not taking it. I'm not going along with the Jewish donors, and I'm not for supporting Israel anymore. And he put out polls. Let me see if I have it in here. Do I have it in here? Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. No, I don't. But he put out a poll asking his own people on Twitter, do you support the U.S. to participate in the Israeli war against Iran? That was in June, and 70% said no. Yeah. And so aren't you, I guess, maybe I'm just, again, naive, but I don't think that people are going to fall for this as easily as they fell for the Iraq weapons of mass destruction.
I wish you were right, but here I'm going to provide a pushback. First of all, Jimmy, you and I are on the same sheet. This war is stupid and it shouldn't be fought. It's a criminal war. But the American people have proven themselves to be extraordinarily susceptible to propaganda targeting peoples that don't look like them, speak different languages, sound differently. And remember, Iran has a couple strikes against it. The theocracy that's in power now was behind the takeover of the U.S. Embassy in 1979. In 1980, we sent a rescue mission in that ended up blowing itself up in the desert, killing 8 Americans, and there's deep resentment. We blame Iran for the bombing of the Marine barracks in Beirut, 241 Marines and soldiers and sailors killed. Iran was supporting the Shia insurgents in Iraq in 2004, 2005, killing 600, 800 American soldiers. Now, we don't like to acknowledge that we had illegally invaded and occupied Iraq, and the Iraqis had every right to defend themselves. We just say Iran was behind their deaths. The American people have been programmed to believe anything negative about Iran. And this is why these NGOs have great success on social media. I mean, you look at it, they just repeat the same lie over and over and over and over again. And then Joseph Goebbels' notion that if you tell the lie often enough, people believe it. That's where I'm at. I don't know. I mean, you and I hang around, I think a similar crowd. We deal with intelligent people who ask questions, et cetera. But I don't think they reflect the majority of the American people. I think the majority of the American people, because they work 2 jobs, because they're busy trying to make ends meet. When they come home, they don't have time to do the deep dig. And so they're prisoners to whatever news outlet they pick. And the majority of the news outlets are either co-opted by the deep state or are repeating things that are promulgated by the deep state. And this is the messaging most Americans get. Hopefully they'll watch your show and see that this is all a lie. I hope this show goes viral. This show should go viral. People should be watching this and informing and empowering themselves with knowledge and information and understanding the lie. But it's too late. If we bomb Iran tonight, it's too late. Americans are going to die. Our economy is going to be tanked. I mean, man, we should have been making this case against this war. And I know you were, I know I was, but we should have tried to stop this thing before it started. And unfortunately, we didn't, because too many Americans believe the nonsense that's put out by the deep state controlled mainstream media.
Well, I just want to show you how easily the media goes along with every war. My whole life, every war, the media is pro-war, and they're always quoting CIA, deep state funded organizations. And here's another one. Wyatt Reed says the U.S. funded NGO behind soaring Iran casualty figures in mainstream media just tripled its death toll to 2,000. And here it is. ABC News reports 2,000. But who is this? Who is reporting this? It's a data published by the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency, or HRANA. And guess what? They admitted to taking money from the CIA. So so here's Ali Abunimah. He says the main source claims 2,000 killed in Iran is the so-called Human Rights Act. That's the same one. And so they changed it to 2,000. And he makes a great point. He says, these are the same media who lied that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction to lay the groundwork for U.S. invasion. The same media who lied that Gaddafi was giving his soldiers Viagra to carry out mass rapes to justify NATO regime change war. The same media who lied about chemical attacks in Syria to justify a dirty war that now has Al-Qaeda running Syria. The same media that lied that there were no Nazis being armed and funded in Ukraine. Of course, we know the same media lied that Palestinians carried out a campaign of mass grape on October 7th to justify Israel's genocide, and are now telling you to believe that Iran is committing atrocities against its own people based on claims from U.S. intelligence agencies and U.S.-backed opposition groups to lay the groundwork for the next stage of the U.S.-Israel war on Iran. If you haven't learned yet, you never will. And here's what Max Blumenthal said. So here's CBS saying it's 12,000. And he says this is why Barry Weiss was installed at CBS, in case it wasn't already clear, so they could get their Iranian war going, and that she would run cover for it with a powerful news agency like 60 Minutes and the CBS News Division. Here's one more. A Today News Iran summary by Grok blasted into my feed by the Twitter algorithm is pure disinformation. The 12,000 dead protesters figure was concocted by sources, meaning Israel, and fed to Barry Weiss at CBS. 1 million people did not protest in Iran against their government. They demonstrated in support of their government, but of course they flipped that. So go. Anything else you'd like to say about this disinformation program?
Yeah, first of all, it's real. It's real. There was a movie made a while back called Wag the Dog. I think you're of my age, so you're familiar with it. Robert De Niro and
Al Pacino,
and Dustin Hoffman.
Oh, Dustin Hoffman, that's right.
He plays a character. Basically, he's a government spinmeister, and his job was to fabricate a war. It's real. Look, I as a weapons inspector, I saw the CIA carry out information operations. I saw the British intelligence. There are people, in England, the MI6 has an entire division called information operations. And their job is to manufacture justification for anything or to spread light. They came up with the, Saddam hid biological weapons in perfume bottles and he could attack England in 45 minutes. They make it all up, and they have connections in the press. That was the interesting thing, is that they own the press, they own the media, and they're able to shovel data. CNN, Jimmy, CNN, I know you're probably a big fan of CNN because they're so honest. CNN was an adjunct to the CIA. When the CIA needed to run a counter information operation against the Iraqis, they brought CNN in to do their bidding. CNN is a CIA adjunct. And I would say the same thing about CBS and Barry White. This is real. There are the CIA in their paramilitary branch. they have an entire group that's dedicated to political operations. And this is about spreading disinformation, and they target the American people. They're not allowed to by law, but they do so. Our mainstream media organizations are populated by people who work for the CIA or on the CIA's payroll. You look at the talking heads that rotate through, they're all former intelligence officers. I'm one, but I didn't get the gig. This is probably, it's not just the National Endowment for Democracy. This is big picture stuff where our government is in the business of fabricating lies and selling those lies to the American people using journalistic outlets that are supposed to be trusted, but none of them are to be trusted.
So the question is, is Donald Trump going to be able to decapitate Iran and get rid of their leader like he did in Venezuela? So actually, Kalchi, go to that. There it is. Kalchi is putting odds on it. Ali, can you believe that? I used to know how to say the last president of Iran. It was Ahmed Dinner Jacket. Ali Khamenei, is he going to be out as supreme leader before February 2026? 22% say yes. Before April 1st, 45%. Before July, 54%. And before September, 60% is going that way. And so you could go over to Kalshi. It's called trading. So you can buy 54 cents for yes and 47 cents for no. And let me get what Scott Ritter thinks about this. Let me ask you a quick question. How do you think they're going to successfully get rid of the leader of Iran?
No, not at all. First of all, they can't. The leader of Iran isn't an individual; it's a position. It's a religious position, and understand constitutionally they have something called the Assembly of Experts. The Assembly of Experts has already picked the follow-on supreme leader. So if the current supreme leader dies, they have somebody who will take his place. This isn't a cult of personality. This is a serious religious position that the theocracy takes seriously. You can't get rid of one person. You have to get rid of the entire system. And the Iranian people, they are religious. They are Shia. They take their faith seriously. And while they would like to see changes in the way they are governed, they're not going to tolerate the United States coming in, dropping a few bombs, and getting rid of it. The theocracy is real. It's deep-seated, and it's not hated like the monarchists and other people say. There are people that would like to see a change and to moderate and improve. Who doesn't want that? We want that. Everybody wants better government. But no, we're not going to get rid of the Iranian government because the Iranian government is Iran.
Okay. Scott Ritter, I appreciate you. Thanks again for good luck on your getting rebanked.
Rebanked.
I hope it happens. Fingers crossed. Yeah. You're a true patriot. Too bad we don't have more people like you in government. Thanks anyway.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Okay, pal.
Have a good night.